And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
All right, attention to roll call.
That's right, everybody. Good morning, 8:05 live Eastern time. And, of course, for me, the 49th state of Alaska, it's 4:05 in the morning, bright and early. Happy 4th of July to everyone. I think this is going to be a great episode, your Friday roundtable. We're talking about your New York City's mayoral election scam. This scam is full of tricks. It's full of jokes. It's full of political strategy. And that's why this is called not Card Monty, but Card Mamdani. John, let's get into it. Let's talk about why this election is just a scam. But happy 4th of July to everyone.
Yeah, happy 4th of July, baby. 249 years old America is. So, yeah, Card Mamdani. We're going to get into that in a little bit. We're definitely going to break all that down. That was an idea and a thought process that came out by Jimmy Wagner of the Kings County Donald J. the president of the Kings County Donald J. Trump Republican Club, former guest on the Finest Unfiltered. And he said, he put it out there. He's like, listen, this is we're being run a Card Monty scheme. He's like, basically Cuomo, Zohran, or Adams, they're the same guy. They got the same policies. Whatever card you choose, you lose. New York City residents lose. Big corporations win. We're definitely going to get into that. We're going to get into all the polls that came out. We'll play a little video that Jimmy Wagner put out. But before we get into any of that stuff, I think, part of the Mandani scheme is utilizing what Eric Adams has been doing these last few months, is utilizing Kaz Daughtry and John Shell to electioneer for him, having them campaign on his behalf illegally, by the way, because we're using taxpayer funds for something that should be coming out from his campaign. He's raising millions of dollars in his campaign, but yet you're paying for him to campaign. You're paying for the likes of John Shell to go out on Fox News and Kaz Daughtry to use social media teams and have a team of photographers and videographers follow them around to make these highly edited videos and electioneer for them. I mean, and it's wrong, and more people should be speaking up about it. John Shell already got in trouble for this once when he was talking about Tiffany Caban, and he's doubled down on it. He's doubled down on it since, and I think, we were talking a little bit about this offline, and Eric's like, do you ever remember seeing a member of the NYPD campaign for a mayor? And I've never seen this in my life. It's not only is it illegal, I mean, it's so wrong and disrespectful to what is supposed to be an apolitical organization. And, John Shell and Kaz Daughtry, as well as Ed Caban, really on behalf of Eric Adams, have tainted the entire image of the NYPD, and they look like a highly politicized organization that'll 180 on a dime, just like the mayor that they support, Eric Adams. Sal, what do you think about John Shell going out there?
Yeah, first of all, I want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July, everyone, the entire country, and especially the president on the 249th birthday of this country. He actually did some good things yesterday, so it's you gotta praise him before you hit him, you know what I mean? So I have a lot of praise for all of that, passing the bill. But with John Shell, I think this week, I think I brought it to you guys' attention. He went on that Fox News, and it's okay to go on there and you want to talk about public safety. But when I think he made reference to Mamdani, he said something about him. He mentioned something about Curtis Lever, and then he's basically endorsing Eric Adams. When you're up there in uniform, you have to remember, as the chief of the department, he's representing the police department. Now, the only other person that could give him permission would have been Jessica Tisch. And I guess the police department's official stance is that his rhetoric against Mamdani and his electioneering for Eric Adams is the police department saying, we endorse Eric Adams and we despise Mamdani. But, I mean, you're not supposed to do that because he's violating the Hatch Act, actually, which, again, he did it prior on social media. He's doing it again the other day on Fox News. And I don't know. I really think this guy has another career lined up where he thinks he's going to be some guy on media. I wish he had the guts to come over here. He'd have a lot of questions to get asked and answered, but I don't see if he's going to do that. But again, is his rhetoric on Maria Bartiramo's show the official stance of the police department? Because that's the way it looks.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Happy 4th of July, everyone. I'm gonna do my best today not to be too black-pilled, all right? Because I'm saying that because I saw some stuff on social media this morning from Trump that I'm not too happy with, you know. But again, I'm gonna try not to be too black-pilled because it is the 4th of July. And with that said, none of what Shell is doing is a surprise to me. I mean, we talked about this last week that Kaz was also electioneering for Adams in his social media videos. We talked about Tish doing it too on a Monday with the Pride Parade and goal, and why now, you know? So when we see Shell on there, that doesn't come as a surprise to me. You know, it's what they're doing now, and the rules they're trying to go around are in my opinion due to the restrictions that have been placed on Eric Adams' campaign on his financing. So they're going to find sneaky ways to go around it all and to use government funds and government resources to promote Eric Adams. So none of this is a surprise to me, and as I've said before, again, there's a lot of money behind Eric Adams, and there's a lot of money betting on Eric Adams' agenda. And there's so much money involved that a lot of forces are going to try to exert their will and make sure Eric Adams remains the mayor of New York City. So, yeah.
I am highly concerned about the political process in New York City. And that's why I said before we started the podcast today, because I thought about it. I thought about it. I laid down. I said to myself, wow, have we ever seen, right? Didn't I say Sal? I said, Sal, think about it, right? And John and Marlon, in your career, I said, forget about it, not even your career, just your lifetime before being a cop and now the afterlife of the NYPD. Can we ever think of a time where we saw uniformed personnel, particularly the upper echelon of the NYPD, and now we see John Shell electioneering or actually speaking in opposition of a potential candidate to me, which is election interference, because the uniform is supposed to represent neutrality. It's supposed to represent authority and not personal views. It's about public service. And I think when you're in uniform and you give personalized views of who you support or who's in your opposition, to me, that completely distorts the whole political process. And that it's almost like we're talking about days of Gestapo. That is, you could actually make people feel uncomfortable. Like, wow, if I vote for, listen, I don't want Mamdani to win. I don't want him to win, but neither do I want Adams or Cuomo. But I still believe in the political process. And I believe if the police in uniform give their personalized views, especially at that rank, you distort the process. You you could easily make people meek and timid as far as making their decision. Eddie West says it right here. Thank you to our men and women who serve our country to keep us safe and protect our rights. That's what this is about. Uniformed personnel is supposed to protect the rights so that you can have freedom of speech and feel free to vote. But when you're in uniform and you're electioneering for Eric Adams and you're speaking opposition to Mandani, easily can make people of New York City to feel, wow, enforcement is biased. You're going to enforce the law based on who you work for, based on Mayor Eric Adams, based on Mandani, and we lose neutrality. I think these are scary times. I never thought in 2025 we would see something like that. It's irresponsible, and I think it's dangerous. I think it's just downright dangerous. John, do you think that? Honestly, I think it's dangerous to the public. I think it's much more. It's a bigger picture than us just commentating, criticizing John Shell. This is a big problem.
But again, it's a politicized police department is a very scary thing. It's more like a Gestapo than a police force. First they were for illegal immigration, and they were only, and then from being like pro open border agency, then they went to, I mean, they were literally advocating for illegals to work in New York City. I don't know if you remember the police department tweeting about that and putting that out there, and Kaz talking about it, that they wanted illegals to work in New York City while they want to keep people like myself and Marlon out of work in New York City. So, I mean, I thought that was ridiculous. But then they don't even hold to that. Then it turns to, well, you know what? If you're convicted of a really violent crime, then we think after you serve your time in New York City, you should be deported. Then it went to, public safety threats should be deported. Then it went to everybody should be. It's like, wait a minute. What do you like? So you just turn on a dime regardless of your own morals, regardless of what's legal, what the law is, and it's scary to watch, man, because we've watched John Shell be 4 different people in the last 6 months, right? He's had 4 different stances on deportation in Sanctuary City in the last 6 months. I mean, it's really scary to watch, dude. I understand politicians are like that because they're particularly not real people. They're phony people. That's why they don't do real long form conversations. And if they do, they're in a joking manner. They're never going to sit down with people that are well informed. They sit down with comedians. They sit down with people in the Midwest. They sit down with people that don't really know politics, rappers, And they sit down with, like Sal says, they sit down with low information people because they're able to easily manipulate them, And so, but when you look at a member of law enforcement acting in that same manner, now you're like, wait a minute, that is not a law enforcement official. That is a politician. So John Shell is no longer a cop, in my opinion. He shouldn't be a cop anyway, but he is a politician through and through. He's a media talking head, and honestly, he's a propagandist at this point because he will pitch and sell whatever Eric Adam tells him to. I said the other day that Viral News New York City, he has Adam splooge all over his face, and he needs to wipe his face. And I think the same is true for John Shell and Kaz Daughtry, particularly John Shell. Like, he's got to wipe it around his eyes, like he's got to get it all out there because he's been like that. Whatever he says, and he goes out and he pitches it, and it doesn't doesn't even blink about it, dude. Like, you just said something different 2 weeks ago, and now he's literally campaigning for the guy. It is very dangerous. It is very dangerous. And again, when you look at the way they act, and what the way that he acts, and the way and what the NYPD represents, it could 100% could their authority be misused? Absolutely. It's been misused against this podcast. It's been misused against us as individuals. And it's wrong and it's illegal. And I don't think enough people are really looking at the big picture. They see this interview on Fox News, and I know the right, and I know Republicans, and I know conservatives, and they're probably cheering this on, not realizing what they're cheering on.
I agree. I never thought we'd see the day we see this, like with and it continues. I thought they would smarten up. I can understand if Shell wants to do this on his own X, like he had an interaction with Jack Stern, my producer, and he's behind the scenes, Jack, and I saw John interacting with him, but in uniform, this was always a big no-no. Remember, everyone here should remember, I literally was terminated from the NYPD for political purposes because they wanted you to, well, again, the perception management is what they're doing is what they were trying to say I was doing, that I was the Trump supporter that did this in uniform, and that never happened. It never happened. I'm friends with Roger, and I went to, I was in D.C. on January 5th and 6th and did nothing, but they used that, and they were trying to make it like, oh, he's doing this in uniform, but I didn't. And they're doing it. They're being political in uniform, and it says in a patrol guy, we could grab this. It says you can't do this. And it's funny because they always break the rules they say they have to enforce, which makes every rule that they've been enforcing people, whether they terminate you for whatever reason, it's illegal because they don't follow their own rules. And they associate with criminals themselves on top of it. So, again, I don't know. This guy should just retire now and be a politician or whatever he wants to be, a talking head. I know Newsmax, I don't know what's going on there with Newsmax. He actually stabbed him in the back by being on Fox. He's actually a Newsmax guy, so I don't know what that was about, to be on Maria's show. But, again, go back and tell me where you could find another police official that goes out on a limb and talks about politics on air, on his social media, like the way these guys do, and there's no repercussions. Go back and look about anyone else. If there's anyone else in the history that's gotten away with this for this long, too. Now it's 3 or 4 years straight since Eric Adams is in office, that it's all politics all the time with these guys.
Marlon, before you go, I just want to say Rob Lukash got the comment of the day. Talking head with no neck. You're absolutely right. Actually, well, it's triple fat neck.
Yeah, I just want to point out that their stance on immigration is about to change also, once again, because Trump made some comments today alluding to amnesty certainly for like farm workers. So I expect another shift.
Hotel workers.
Yeah. So I expect another shift in their stance on immigration once more. And again, this is one of the things I alluded to as not making me happy when I saw it this morning. But again, this goes back. I think there's a little bit of desperation in what's going on, and that desperation is not only from the Dream Team, but it's also comes from the media, because we're seeing the Republican media is pushing Eric Adams. We're seeing pieces in the papers telling Cuomo to step down. We're seeing pieces, from corporate executives and hedge fund leaders trying to shift the election and telling you that Eric Adams is the best choice you got. And it's desperation on their part because, like I said before, there's a lot of money tied into Eric Adams' policies. I mentioned just last night about Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman, he's one of these legendary investors, quote unquote legendary investors, right? He has a hedge fund that's invested in New York City real estate, and I speculated that they're looking to build a casino in South Seaport, where they have a lot of properties. And here he is talking about the election. Obsessively talking about the election now, and he wrote another piece trying to convince us that Eric Adams is the best choice we got. So it's desperation on their part, because in his case he's gonna lose a lot of money if Eric Adams isn't there. And Eric Adams, as we said before, his City of Yes plan is to redistrict the city, and he's already said that he wants a lot of casinos. Oh, and by the way, Eric Adams used to run the state's gambling commission, So there's a lot of money invested in Adams, and there's a desperation on all these people's part to keep him there. And in the case of the Dream Team, they want to stay there and complete their agenda and certainly not go out with the scandals that have happened in the last couple of months. So.
Yeah, listen, and in the the uniform represents, well, let me say, the uniform, you wear it, but it belongs to the public, right? It belongs to the community. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be not an agenda, I guess you could say, right? You're not a politician. You're not supposed to have an agenda. You wear that uniform that represents public service, and that you'll maintain order and keep the peace no matter who's elected, no matter who's in office. Your job is supposed to not see it through a personalized lens. You enforce the law as it's on the books. I want to reference John, for instance. He says this a long time, and I give him credit for that, right? Even though he left his career because of the vaccine mandate. John, you said it numerous times. If the law was to make an arrest for trespass because someone was told in a private business that because they're not vaccinated or they don't have a card, they cannot remain. And if they don't, they would be arrested for trespass, that you would do it. And that goes against your personal views. But because your job was to maintain order and execute the law, you said you would do it. But when John Shell, the chief of the department, is in uniform on national TV, electioneering, to me, it's also election interference. And it really is the bigger picture that this is like time of Nazis right here, because it's almost like you're trying to instill fear in people. Like, hey, you have to vote for this person, and if you vote for this one, we're in trouble here. And you can't do that in uniform. I think it's a far bigger picture than people believe. I think that, and it's absolutely right what you said before, John. Also, that the Republicans are cheering for it, not realizing what you're actually cheering for. Are people seeing below the surface? I know there's plenty of cops. I haven't spoken to them yet about it, but I'm sure there's cops that are probably saying, "Oh, that's great." It's not great when you think about it. It's not. We have a political process. We have a democratic process for a reason. We have uniformed personnel that are interfering. We have wealthy individuals, wealthy organizations that have special interest. There's already that economic interference. So that's why I say our democratic process is not so much more democratic, and this just makes it far worse.
Yeah, so 100%. We're gonna start getting into the video, but just one other point on that is, like, I heard a lot of retirees when we started pointing out, like, all the things that Shell was saying on social media about the car chases. Where our mayor lets us play offense, blah blah blah. We're not having it no more, and all the retirees are jumping up and down. Guys that have been out over a decade, and I'm like, and we criticize them, and they're like, "You're not happy that he's saying this?" And I'm like, "Look, the thing is, like, they work for a mayor who's an anti-police racist, who the minute anything goes bad, he's going to turn their back on them. And so what you're doing is you're sending these young cops out there to go run around New York City like cowboys. They're going to kill people, innocent people, by the way. And then perps will die as a result of it too, and they're going to get blamed. They're going to have murder trials. They're going to lose their career. It's going to cost the city hundreds of millions of dollars. And nobody saw what we were talking about. And now, 2 years removed from that, what's happened? They're no longer pursuing cars. They're no longer running that cowboy-style mentality. And many people's careers and lives have been altered, and a lot of people have lost their lives as a result of that stupid policy. And so, like, we're looking at the big picture. We're not looking at what's the rah-rah, yeah, this is great, yeah, John Shell, he's the best. No, because he's not. He's not. And again, in a cleaned up New York City Police Department filled with integrity, there is no way that this man, who just came out that he's a tax cheat, bad shooting, lied to a judge, there's no way that this person with this background is the chief of department in New York City. This only happens under a New York City like Eric Adams. I mean, even Bill de Blasio, who's basically a devout communist, his police department looked a lot more cleaner than the police department of Eric Adams. So let's get into this Maria Bartholomew interview. It's pretty long. It's about 11 minutes actually. So we'll keep stopping it probably at every 2 minutes and discuss it. But here it is. Here's the chief of department, John Shell, on Fox News.
Police department working hard to reduce crime. Year-to-date murders are down 23%. Total major felony offenses down nearly 6% in that time frame. And of course, much of this has to do with President Trump closing the border. But some New Yorkers are on edge after Zoran Mamdani won the Democrat mayoral primary. The self-described Democrat socialist campaigned for years on a platform of defunding the police, but only recently said this on X, quote, "Don't believe the MAGA billionaires funding Andrew Cuomo's fear-driven campaign. I will not defund the police. I will let them do their actual jobs in investing in social and mental health workers and pursuing evidence-based policies that deliver safety." Investing in social and mental health workers. Is that what their job is at the NYPD? At least a dozen tweets from 2020 show a very different opinion, including one where he writes this: "We don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. What we need is to defund the NYPD writes Mamdani back in June of 2020. Joining me now is the chief of department.
But before we get into Shell, real quick, just here's the thing. Like, Mandani is the things he's saying scares me, especially when he talks about evidence-based, because that's stuff we hear from Tiffany Caban, stuff we hear from AOC when it relates to public safety, and they never outline, in fact, what those evidence-based approaches are to public safety. But here's the thing that like bothers me about this. These tweets mirror Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, but yet Fox News prior to this doesn't show. How many times have I played that Hot 97 interview where Eric Adams has came out and said that not only does he want to defund the police by $600 million to $1 billion and give it to dyslexia screenings, he also wants to lower the headcount of the NYPD and civilianize law enforcement out in the street. And yet Fox News does not point that out here. They don't point out that they all supported this. All three in the Card Mamdani scam, Zohran Mandani, Eric Adams, and Andrew Cuomo, who said that he didn't say to come out and defund the police, but he said it was a legitimate school of thought. Like, why do you think that like that's not being presented here? Shouldn't that be presented to the public if you're a journalist? That all three of these candidates, we're talking about Zohran Mandani only on his defund the police stances, but leaving out the fact that Cuomo and Adams also had the same exact stances.
And Bill de Blasio. What about, he sounds exactly like Bill de Blasio here. I want to reiterate, I keep saying this over and over again. I see the fear-mongering. First of all, New York City already had a socialist mayor. His name is Bill de Blasio. So it's not the end of the world if a socialist is there, because you survived those 8 years. And all it is a lot of this crazy rhetoric, crazy policies. And by the way, they don't like Trump, who won't make it to the end of the next mayor's term. He's only going to have 3 years of that term. So that's another factor. You'll have a new president during this next mayoral term. But the fear-mongering that's going on with this guy, they don't go after this guy's policies, Mamdani. They always attack him for his religion, his race, and, he's a whatever. What is he going to call him, a communist again? He might have those policies, but so does Eric Adams, who defunded the police, bankrupted the city with the illegal immigrant invasion. He's the mayor of the illegals and the elites. That's who he really is, Eric Adams. Everything that Mamdani wants to put in place is already there, and it's Eric Adams. Eric Adams' policies. I think we pointed this out. Me and John do this almost daily, 2-3 times a day, sometimes more. And the guy, again, he bashes Trump. When he mentions go back to Ohio, you go back to Iowa, he means MAGA, folks. That's what he meant. He didn't mean the yuppies. He didn't want conservatives in the city because he needs the low information crowd to go, you're great, Eric. I want to dump that Bible some more, and we'll give you thousands of dollars like he was doing for a long time there. By the way, John, I don't know if you know who's on his campaign again. Ingrid Lewis-Martin's there. Brianna Suggs is there. Who else? Winnie Greco's there. Tim Pearson's there. Weren't these people just being investigated? Oh, that's right. The president paused all those investigations because it's important to have his puppet up there to win this. And if you didn't notice in the polls, who's last? Oh, that's right. Eric Adams, whose only chance is if Mamdani, Cuomo, and Sliwa all left the race, and then he wins by default. And we've only told you this over and over again. So that's another thing that we were proven right yesterday with me and John telling you he has no shot to win. I know he's having a fancy get-together funded by all the billionaires that Marlon mentioned in Long Island this weekend. He still can't win because he is the mayor of the illegals who he pushed, that Mamdani's pushing, that de Blasio pushed, and the mayor of the elitists, who de Blasio and Mamdani are also going to be the mayor of, just to throw that out there.
Yeah, it's the answer, I believe, is because fear is I talked about this a while ago, that fear is a huge motivator, you know, to getting people out there who let's say might have not voted in these mayoral elections. I think, and in general, fear is how the problem, reaction, solution Hegelian dialectic works. They scare you enough that you're gonna think irrationally, and you're gonna react emotionally, and you're gonna accept the choices that are put in front of you out of that fear. If you look at the world around us, you know, they try and scare us with, okay, Iran has nukes, Iran's gonna kill us, okay, or Russia, or Putin's gonna bomb us today, you know, or you know, you go back the last 20 years, everything is fear. 9/11, okay, Bin Laden's gonna kill us, you know, he's gonna repeat 9/11. You got Saddam is gonna kill us with his nukes. You got all these instances of the media bombarding you with fear. It's what they do. So they hit you with enough fear about Mamdani, and then they present to you their solution, their choice, and their choice is Eric Adams. Either you vote for Eric Adams, or it's all over for us. Okay, it's just how they're dynamic, and it actually works. If you look at the last 20 years, it has worked. Although, in my opinion, I think that tactic is getting worn out, and that's largely because we now have the internet and we now have social media, and this didn't exist in the past. So it's becoming a lot harder to use now.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you speak about fear, I think that fear, ultimately what fear does, it triggers a survival mindset, right? So the people in New York City are now in a survival mode where what's going to happen to the city if Mamdani becomes the mayor, because this is what's implemented in their brain. So particularly when we speak about this video, I see the chief of department, the highest ranking uniform member, who is trying to utilize this whole perception management, as you say, about crime, and reiterate to the public how crime is down under Eric Adams. You're safe. And then instill the fear from the guy who's supposedly keeping the city safe, who's in charge of the largest police department in the entire world, is telling you, Mamdani, if he's elected, you're not going to be safe. So that's where the fear is instilled in the people. And that's what fear does. It triggers a survival mindset. And people will decide their vote based on survival. What will happen to me if I vote in opposition of Eric Adams? And as we said, it's three-card Monty. If you vote for Mamdani, Eric Adams, or Cuomo, you're getting the same thing. Cuomo destroyed the state. Adams destroyed the city, this site of potential corruption, and now an all-out democratic socialist. But in the end, they're all the same. But this fear is instilled to make you believe that you're safe right now. Public safety. That's when you listen to this video. John Shell is telling you how great the crime stats are, how effective the police department is. The police are playing offense, that crime is down. And if Mamdani becomes your mayor, then it's going to be all out chaos, and you won't be safe anymore.
So, I mean, again, in a competent police department, John Shell never even takes this interview because he knows the segment, and he should have been like, listen, it's a mayoral election. My concern is the people of the city of New York and public safety. He's basically going to sit here and tell you that if Mandani's elected, New York City is going to go backwards. And now, while that might be true, it's not his place to say it.
Correct.
He runs in an apolitical organization because you know what? If Eric Adams is elected, New York City is going to continue on the slide that it is. If Andrew Cuomo is elected, New York City is going to continue on the slide that it is. So he has no business doing this. So here we're going to go. You're going to hear the chief of department campaign for Eric Adams using taxpayer fund, using his uniform, and going on right-wing media to do so. And again, like I said, in a competent police department, this interview probably never happens. But if it does, the only thing he's going to talk about is what they've done and what his concerns are, and he's not going to talk about this election. So here it goes. You ready?
Department. At the NYPD, John Shell.
Hey,
Chief,
man.
it's great to see you.
Great
Thank
to
you
see
so
you.
much for joining us, and congratulations on the promotion now to the Chief of Department. I want to get your take on all of this. Could the city return to the 1970s level of crime if Mamdani gets in there and starts defunding the police?
Look, we cannot go backwards. It is not an option. We have made great strides. We've worked so hard, as you just pointed out, to start bringing crime down the last couple of years, to have our best 6 months ever in shooting violence. Since on Eric Adams, our shootings are down 54% since 2022. Quality of life is getting better in the city. We cannot go backwards. We need someone like the mayor who supports us, funds us, gives us the tools we need to keep this going. We are turning the ship, and we are the safest city in America, and we keep proving it time and time again. But like I just said, there is no going backwards. It's not an option, or we'll lose this city.
Well, look, we have to point out that President Trump has a lot to do with.
So, all right. So you heard what he said. He basically said, if you vote for Zohran Mandani, the city's going back. We need the leadership of Eric Adams. He's telling you vote for Eric Adams. It's completely illegal. Like, this is a crime, people. This isn't just, oh, you're getting a CD. This is illegal. Honestly, he should be, if Jessica Tisch had any say over the police department, he would have been removed after this interview. He would have been removed. I mean, he would have been removed way before all that. He would have never been appointed in the first place. But obviously, she doesn't control the New York City Police Department. Eric Adams does. But what he just did there is completely wrong. He's interfering in a New York City election, and he's spreading propaganda for the mayor. That's what he's doing.
Yep. You know why, too, John? He's saying crime is down, and we're like dissecting videos of off-duty incidents. There was one where I showed you where there was these 4 juveniles with one with a knife in a transit station. I don't know if that was in Brooklyn or whatever, but luckily the cop did everything he's supposed to do and got him to comply with a giant knife in his hand. This kid. We just had an incident in a subway, I believe, this morning in Queens. He's saying crime is down. They don't even take reports for shots fired anymore. If you shoot a gun and it doesn't hit any human being, don't write that report. Never happened. So
Sal, just to hone in on that too, with the shootings, I'm hearing that they decommissioned a lot of the shot spotters throughout New York City, which would have prompted. So a shot spotter is like when a shot goes off. It prompts a report, right? The police have to respond, and they have to take a report for shooting. And so if you look at where the shot spotters have been decommissioned, and when you look at where the amount of shootings have decreased, it coincides.
So they actually took that shot spotter down to what? Help Eric Adams. Oh, crime is down. It's everything about this guy is a low information talking point. Everything about this whole administration is a perception management, and it's happening yet again. I can't wait. December 31st will be his last day in office. Trust me when I tell you, he's not getting reelected. All of this, they're going to make sure I hope whoever is elected, hopefully it's Curtis, gets in there and exposes everything this guy was doing. Like, oh, look at what they did. They decommissioned the shot spotter. I thought this was one of the best inventions the police department has. So you turn it down? So you want to help this guy? Is that helping the public? No, it's not. And this guy, again, he is 100% spewing not only propaganda, but he's spewing election. He's not supposed to be doing this. And this is what they fired me for. Political BS that I never even did. I would never be in uniform talking about anything like this. I want to go on TV. He's going on TV, and he's done this in the past. But here, he's literally saying, we need Eric Adams to guide us through the future because crime is down. All of a sudden, crime is down. And again, the New York Post is, I don't know, they should rename themselves the Eric Adams Post or the Jessica Tisch Post. Were we supposed to bow to Jessica Tisch where corruption is flourishing underneath her? I don't know where they're getting these crime stats, but you have to factor in what we're saying, that shots that are not anyone that shoots a gun that doesn't hit a human being it doesn't count. They're not writing that report. Shot spotters are taken down. They're also declassifying things from robbery to assault. Assault 2 is only assault 3. We have a major stabbing at a nightclub that is run by the police department's best friend, and they all hang out there. Silence. Close that. Don't mention that at all. That's what's been going on. You're being bamboozled. You're being bamboozled by John Shell and his whole crew. And it's everything we have been saying forever. And shout out to Cafecito Break in the comments to the Perez sisters. And they're doing a good job trying to get Curtis Lever elected. So shout out to you both.
Yeah, it's because New York City is it's a low information society, you know. Lately, I'm in fact starting to question whether we're actually a real city. By the way, you know, because when I see, you look at what's been happening, right? You know, where I don't think we're a well functioning society in New York City. You know, there's so much going on that most people, you know, there's only in my opinion, there's only a handful of people that are actually aware of what's happening. I think most people are they're just trying to get by so much that a lot of this escapes them, right? They don't have time to pay attention to the minutia of what's going on. And you look at what's happened over the years in New York City, right? Let's go back to the scamdemic. The scamdemic was ground zero was New York City, right? And you'd think New Yorkers would be like in the streets with pitchforks and like torches for what happened. You know, you had small businesses that were destroyed. Okay, if you walk in Manhattan, every block there's at least 1 or 2 stores that are boarded up right now. You see a lease sign out front, and the store is empty right now. Right? You look at how many city workers lost their jobs. You look at you know, in the aftermath of all that, most people agree that a lot of the fear was not legit. A lot of what the propaganda that were being told to us by the media was that propaganda. But those people aren't angry. You know, those people aren't enraged about the situation, because if they really were, Eric Adams wouldn't even be there anymore. You know, the governor would have been forced to remove him, right? So my thinking is that New York City is just such a low information society that it becomes the beta test for a lot of the things they want to push out for the rest of America. And when you see things like what's going on with Chell there, and him basically giving talking points that are preying upon low information voters, you have to understand that it's like they all know this now. They all know New York City is a low information society, so they're all taking advantage of it. So I in being a low information society, I just don't think we're a well functioning city, and we're a beta test for all these initiatives that they want to push out to the rest of America, because they know in New York City you can basically do whatever, and very few people are going to question it, and there's not going to be outrage, and there won't be any pitchforks and shovels, people walking around in the street getting so angry and frustrated at what's happened.
I don't want to go totally off topic here, but I think it's kind of funny. The picture's not up right now, but that picture of Shell just reminds me of, remember when you were kids and you would watch Halloween and Mike Myers? I used to have it, the Mike Myers mask, and then they had like that hanging neck. That's what if you look at that picture of John Shell, that's what reminds me of, that like hanging neck from Mike Myers. He like tucking in his shirt. He's trying to tuck his neck in. But no, you're right, Marlon. I think you're absolutely right. You know, it's at the point where, like, my mother still lives in New York City, right? My mother lives in Brooklyn, and what she tells me is that New York City feels like hollow at this point, right? Like it used to be a place of vibe and grit, and you felt that New York City vibe, and now it kind of feels hollow in a sense that small businesses, right? We're talking about public safety, but what about small business, right? Small business has been completely removed from New York City. That was the beautiful thing about New York City, right? Those mom and pop stores, those small hardware stores, or just small stores, and that's been removed. And just that complete vibe, these small, not chained restaurants. People had a life in New York City. It was something to be proud of. You felt it, right? Like John, you're back. You're back in the tri-state area. You're back in New York City. Do you sometimes feel what I'm saying, that it's kind of hollow in a sense of not that substance that it once was? I mean, that's what I think about in New York City. It was a place where you felt neighborhoods. You felt that vibe, and I think that's gone. It's gone from New York City. We lost it. And Sal, you said it earlier that the socialist was Bill de Blasio, and so was Eric Adams, and so is Mamdani. That's why this is 3-card Mamdani, because whichever card you get, whichever one you're dealt, or whichever one is chosen, you get the same thing. And I say it all the time. I think de Blasio drove the car to the cliff. Eric Adams drove it over the cliff. And if Eric Adams is reelected or Mamdani's elected, they're going to bury it. That's where we're at. Cuomo's no better. And that's unfortunate. The two adults, and Jim Walden was here today in the room. He was in the chat. Jim Walden and Curtis Sliwa, the two adults, are not being considered to where they should be. It's at the point, I heard it, I think it was on the radio yesterday, where people are telling Curtis Sliwa to drop out, or they're telling Cuomo to drop out so that Mamdani doesn't win, so that Eric Adams wins. I mean, this is the most insane election we have ever seen. I can't believe what we're watching right now. It's just the political process is gone. And that's why. What's
Eric,
that?
you know what you just said? You just pointed out one thing again. They're saying that Curtis Sliwa, who's right behind Cuomo and stands as a better chance to win this election, like we keep saying, they're saying that everyone else should drop out so the last place guy, Eric Adams, can win. Just remember
Exactly.
that. When these guys are asking low information, you can't get more low information than that. Sorry.
Yeah. Look, you got Sharpton telling Cuomo to drop out, which I don't even know why Sharpton's voice matters anyway. We have people telling Sliwa that he needs to drop out because it's for the good of the city. How did we get to this point that this whole political strategy is by telling everybody else they got to go, so that the guy in last place that ran a corrupt administration, partying all the time, as you always say, and as Curtis Sliwa said, he was on the other day, partying to the break of dawn. How is that guy the savior? And you know what? I got to give kudos to you and John. You said a long time ago, this whole political strategy that he's going to go independent, because if he was in a Democratic primary, Eric Adams wouldn't be in the conversation, and we wouldn't be playing 3-card Mamdani. That's the reality. This whole game, this whole charade, and you know what, Marlon? That's why you're right. We don't have a city anymore. Think about the days of Rudy Giuliani, Bloomberg. Even if we go back to Koch, even David Dinkins, it was a city. Yeah, crime was up in the 90s. Crime was up in the 80s too. But you had a city, you had a place that you were proud of. I mean, we grew up in those streets at those times. It was grit, it was vibe. But it was New York City, it was something special. It's not the same. It's a broken city, right? Wasn't there a movie called Broken City? That's what this is.
Yeah. So, I mean, for you New York City residents, I don't know how often you guys get out, but like my barometer really is when I go into Walgreens. So I go to Walgreens in Florida, and I could buy anything I want. I could take packs of razors and walk to the counter and pay for it. I don't have to press a button and wait for everything. I walk into Walgreens in Staten Island on Highland Boulevard and Seaview Avenue, and it's a shell of the Walgreens that I used to walk into 5 years ago. It's a shell. There's homeless people in front of it. They're all begging for money. There's all drug addicts walking back and forth. I've never seen this before in Staten Island. This is Eric Adams, New York City. Crime isn't down. It's just being masked. It's being shielded. And my point in all of it is Does any of that change reelecting Eric Adams or Andrew Cuomo or Zohran Mandani? No. You're going to go to get a bottle of water in Walgreens, and you're going to press a button, and there's going to be one person working that's completely overwhelmed and miserable and hates their job and hates living where they live, and it's going to take you an hour to get a bottle of water. You're probably going to leave by the time you actually get to pay for what you want or get what you want. I mean, I'll do a little video about that when I get some time. I'll do next time I have to go to Walgreens on Staten Island and Highland Boulevard. I'm going to do a little video because it's a completely different Walgreens than the one that I shopped in 5 years ago. And that happened and occurred under Eric Adams, and when you look at Highland Boulevard, when you particularly from the bridge all the way down, you go all the way down to about until you get to like towards the Newdorp area. I mean, basically every business is out. Every other business, I don't see big businesses lasting there. The mom and pop restaurants, a lot of them have left. A lot of the mom and pop businesses have left. I mean, from Royal Crown to Seaver Avenue, I mean, it doesn't look like the Highland Boulevard I grew up in. I don't see flourishing businesses there. So that's the thing. So let's get into, so I don't think we have to go any further into John Shell. That's an 11-minute interview. If those you want to be entertained, go to Fox News, check that Fox Business News out. But it's completely illegal what he did. You heard what he said there. I don't think we need to go any further into this. Let's get on the Mandani scheme. This is Jim Wagner breaking this down. This is the president of the Donald J. Trump Republican Club. He breaks down exactly what's happening in New York City and as it pertains to this mayoral election.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Jim Wagner, President Donald J. Trump, Kings County Republican Club. I'm letting you know the 3-card Monty in 2025 is actually going to be called the 3-card Mandani. It does not matter which Democrat socialist you elect. You get into that booth, Adams, Cuomo, Zohan, they're the same con. They're the same person. Who gets hurt? Working class New Yorkers. It's the 3-card Mandani scam. They're running you. They're running you. Brooklyn, wake up. This is like the 80s in Times Square. You're getting scammed. Trust me. Take a look. What's a 3-card Monty? You got 2 deuces and a 3. Let's put these cards down. Very simple. These cards are down. Your deuce is now an ace. That's amazing. It's an ace. You just got aced in the hole. Where did your deuce go? Let's be clear. Ended up in my back pocket. Work a man. Don't get taken. This is a 3-card Mandani scam. You're going to get screwed. The Outer Burrows are going to get screwed. This is a Manhattan money man scam. Stay away from it. Vote for Curtis Lewa. Thank you.
Yeah, he's right on that. This is all Manhattan led, and which is why I said months ago, I kind of want the boroughs to be broken up now, because our interest in the Outer Burrows is not the same interest as Manhattan anymore. It's no longer the case. Manhattan right now is in a lot of ways in desperation mode because they have all these empty office buildings and they have a property tax problem that's emerging. And a lot of these big business guys like Aikman do not want to lose billions of dollars. So they're pushing guys like Adams. They even if Mandani gets there, and I'm almost ready to triple down on my bet that he's not going to be mayor because guys like Aikman won't allow it. Okay, but even if he were to get there, what's going to happen is the money men are going to come to him and be like, and going to tell him how things are really going to run, and he's not going to be able to accomplish much of that socialism that he's promising because if the city can't afford it, none of it is going to happen. Okay, it's like kind of like as I mentioned before, the guy in Chicago, he's having tons of budget issues right now, and he's cutting a lot of programs. So and his base itself is not exactly happy with the way things are going. So that's what's going to happen to Mandani if he gets there. This is an agenda coming from Manhattan, and it just doesn't benefit the Outer Burrows anymore.
Sal, before you go, I just want to say that video by Jimmy Wagner was awesome. I could watch that thing 100 times. That guy did a great job on that, by the way. Jimmy Wagner, spot on, man. That was awesome. You know, not just being a showman. That was just well played. Awesome.
No, he's right. But again, Marlon's trying to explain to you how this works, and we see it play out. Manhattan being the largest borough with the most, you're going to get the most, I think it's by population, it's the most people on one island in the 5 boroughs, or one of them. They're going to come out overwhelmingly, and I guarantee you they're all going to vote for this Mandani guy. The Outer Burrows is where the battle really is, but it's also been, you know, the riffraff from Manhattan is spilled into the Outer Burrows. They can't afford Manhattan, so they're poisoning the voter block over there. So Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx is going to play the most vital role here. And young people, they are coming out and voting. They vote in droves for this guy. So I remember we were going over this. I believe it's your side when you had Curtis on the show and John's showing these graphs showing where you could get votes from. And in one of these latest polls, I saw a big percentage of people that are still undecided. And undecided is where you go from that 35% Mamdani has to he drops or he goes forward. And the same would be for Curtis. Again, Jimmy's pointing out what we've said over and over again. All 3 of those guys are the same exact person. The same exact person. And then by heart, Mamdani, although he's labeled as a socialist and his policies lean that way, he's actually a capitalist because his family is rich. They grew up in a home of privilege. I don't know if people know this. So he's business-oriented in his head is why he's got those big guys lined up behind him now. You haven't noticed the biggest unions of now back Mamdani? Al Sharpton is running around and he's telling Cuomo, you need to drop out. Bill Ackman, who he has a lot to say now. Remember Bill Ackman, I remember he had something going on during the whole COVID thing, but Bill Ackman funded Eric Adams' campaign. He funded that corruption you saw. Bill Ackman's money is the reason why him and his fellow billionaire class is the reason why you have what you have in New York City today. And prior to that, he was funding Andrew Cuomo as governor. Bill Ackman should not even speak unless he's going to say, I'm going to vote the right way and do the right thing and have Curtis Sleeper in there. But his problem is Curtis Sleeper won't tell him, oh, you know that little property you want to buy and you want no one bidding on? Yeah. No. We're not doing that. This is open to the public. That's why he doesn't want Curtis. He wants Eric that goes, yeah, give me my crumbs. Where's my crumbs at? Or he brings his cronies with him. That's why Bill Ackman is good. So I hope the low information people, which there are plenty of in New York City, don't listen to Bill Ackman. Because trust me, he views all of you as a peon, just so you understand. Because he's up here and you're all down here. And that's what they like. They like that class group to be separated, which is why they send illegals into the working class neighborhoods and not in the elite neighborhoods.
So I just want to go back a little bit because Marlon's making the case that Mandani is somehow different than Cuomo or Adams. You know, again, you're saying that, oh, you know, if he gets in, he's not going to be able to accomplish the things he wants to accomplish. I totally disagree with you. And I think that this whole thing is a big scam ran by the Democrats, really ran by the big money billionaires in New York City. Mm-hmm. And I think all 3 of them, they have 3 dogs in the race. You have 2 candidates. They shut out Jim Walden completely from the media, in my opinion. People in New York City never got a chance to even see who Jim Walden is or hear his platform. And I think that's a damn shame for the people in New York City. And you have a guy, Curtis Sliwa, who has enough percentage, 30% of the vote to win the election for New York City. With just slight uptick, he wins the election. And I think that's well known. So what the scam is that's been happening and what we've been telling you is that you're being lied to. Eric Adams has no shot of winning the mayoral election unless Mandani steps out. I personally think that if Cuomo steps out, Curtis Sliwa steps out, it doesn't matter. Zohran Mandani wins the seat of the mayor. And you would think that the big money would really be against that. If they really cared so much if Mandani wins, they would be supporting Curtis Sliwa right now because he has the best shot to win. And I'm not talking that on my opinion. That's not my opinion. That's exactly what it is. Again, this is the first time in history we've ever seen the runner-up in the Democratic primary with 350,000 votes actually gotten more votes than Eric Adams got when he won the Democratic primary in 2021. So they're asking him to step down. Eric Adams didn't run in that primary because he would have got smoked. They're asking Eric Adams looked at running in the Republican primary, but what happened? Curtis Sliwa wins, but all the polling, Curtis Sliwa wins that Republican primary by over 72%, and Eric Adams gets less than 30. So he chose not to run in that. And all of these people are sitting here telling you Eric Adams is the only one that has a shot to beat Zohran Mandani, the big, bad monster who's going to have all the same exact policies that Andrew Cuomo or Zohran Mandani would have. But he's the only one. And I'm saying, and I've been sitting here, and I did it last week, and I said, where is the numbers coming from? Where are you getting that Eric Adams is the only one? He's in last place. He would have got crushed in the Republican primary. He would have got crushed in the Democratic primary. Where are you getting this from? And nobody can answer. Nobody. I haven't heard one person give me the answer. I had a lot of pushback. Curtis Lee was a clown. This, that, the other thing. He wears a red beret, but no one will answer the question. Where does Eric Adams get the votes from? Let's say Andrew Cuomo drops out of the race. You think Democrats are voting for Eric Adams with a below? He has a 70% disapproval rating in New York City. You think Democrats are going to go say, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to vote for Eric Adams now? Absolutely not. They're going to say, I'm voting for Zohran Mandani. Andrew Cuomo drops out of the race. It solidifies Zohran Mandani will win the election, and he will win it handily. He will win it with over 50% of the vote. If you are a common sense person and you were looking at the numbers, you would hope that everybody stays in this race, and you would hope that the Republicans stay strong, and there would be a split vote between an Adams. You have Adams peeling a little bit of the vote away from a Mandani and a little bit away from Cuomo, and he stays in. And Republicans say, I'm not getting behind this vaccine open border Nazi. I'm not going to get behind this guy who destroyed New York City, and I can't even get a bottle of water from my local deli without having to push a button. You would think they would go against that, and those three would crush each other. It would lower the amount of votes needed for a candidate who has strong support like a Curtis Lee to win. But that's not what you're hearing. You're hearing, let's push Eric Adams ahead. And the 3-Card Mamdani scam is exactly that. You're going to push Mandani ahead. You're going to push Eric Adams. Republicans and conservatives pushing Eric Adams. The only thing they're doing, they're not splitting the vote on Mandani. They're not splitting the vote on Cuomo. They're splitting the Sliwa vote and weakening him. And it doesn't give Eric Adams enough votes to win the seat of the mayor, but it ensures that a Zohran Mandani wins. Again, I told you, I got offered. I would have been on the ballot. I would have been on the ballot right now. And I said, absolutely not. And the reason I said absolutely not is I said, because there is a shot that the Republican nominee could win this mayoral election in a 5-way race or potentially 6-way race, which by the way, we're going to get into that in 1 second. We'll break a little news here that's not being told to you in the media. And so I was like, I'm absolutely not running and detracting and ensuring that one of these maniacs gets in and New York stays on that slide. I'm not going to look at my family and friends in the face, tell them, donate to my campaign, get out there, vote for me, and ensure that New York City remains in the direction it's going. I refuse to do that. I will not be a part of that scheme. Thank you. So I didn't do that. However, I keep saying a 5-way race. There is a new person running that just popped up, and he just got the endorsement of the New York City Bodega Association. Philanthropist, big money man. And I think, in my opinion, I don't know the man. I don't know him from a hole in the wall, but he's also running as an independent. There's going to be a big push behind big money to push this guy as well. And I think that's being done because they're seeing the unfavorability of Eric Adams. The polls have came out. We've seen what the polls show. Eric Adams is dead last, like we told you he is. He's dead last. And by the way, this is a more right-leaning poll, so these numbers are very favorable to Eric Adams. As far as the 14%, he has nowhere near that, and Curtis Sliwa has way more than 16%, and that's not being shown here. And so they're going to interject another player into here, another guy that's backed by big money. And what they're going to do is try to attack Curtis Sliwa even further. What you're seeing is a Mandani scheme. Like Jimmy showed you, you think you could pick a winner, but they're going to keep putting the amount of cards you could pick. And ultimately, whoever you pick, if you pick any one of those people that they want to win, you lose. New York City residents lose.
There's a lot of, I'll say this. Watching this election right now, it's like there's a lot of chess pieces in this. And anyone who plays chess, certain pieces, certain pieces can only move certain ways, right? The queen can move across the entire board. But certain pieces are held to certain movements. And that's why I feel like when it comes to this election, they're trying to make people believe that you have to pick one of these three, or forget about Cuomo, one of these two. And they're trying to make people believe that there's no Republicans in this race.
Wait, why do you keep saying forget about Cuomo? He's the number. If you look at it logically, he's the guy that has the most support behind. He has the. If you look at it logically, the person that has the highest chance to win is Cuomo. That to beat Mandani, excuse me. Obviously, Mandani has the highest chance to win. But like, why are people discounting Cuomo?
Well, because I see it based on the numbers, and we talk about it based on what we see. I don't think Cuomo has a chance to Mamdani. And if we're comparing Eric Adams, what we've been saying, I said he's a Norwegian rat and he can still pull this off. But based on the numbers right now, and based on this poll that we look at right here, that Cuomo is no threat to Eric Adams. And Eric Adams is no threat to Mamdani. So in this
what poll are you looking at, dude? It's 29% to 14%. How is he no threat to Eric Adams? He crushes Eric Adams. Eric Adams is not anywhere there.
Well, because Eric Adams is on the independent. As far as for the Democrats, Cuomo is no threat to Eric Adams because Eric Adams is on the independent line. But clearly, when it comes to the Democrats, it's Mamdani that takes the lead. And I think, but ultimately what this does paint the picture is that there is a Democratic stronghold in New York City. And this paintbrush, this general paintbrush that's been brought in New York City is to make people believe that there is no Republican Party. At the point where you said Republicans are telling Curtis Sliwa that he needs to stand down for the good of the city and make people believe that there is no Republican Party. And so with that being said, it goes back to what I've been saying is that these wealthy individuals and organizations have special interest to support a Democrat in this, whether it's Eric Adams, Mamdani, or Cuomo. And so ultimately the lines are blurred. So the idea that there's two parties in New York City is completely ridiculous. And that's why I think Jimmy Wagner hits it when he talks about the three card Monty. Because what card do you not see there? You don't see Curtis Sliwa and you don't see Jim Walden. Because the Republicans want you to believe that your only option is a Democrat. And I include Eric Adams in that. This whole thing is just complete political chess. And it's just a pure illusion. But even when we go back to these polls, I don't know how much I believe these polls. And that's why I asked you the other day, I think it was on our episode Monday, is how much faith do you have in these polls? Because what polls have actually, do you know any polls in any past elections that were actually reflective of an actual turnout? Because, the polls we see in the past.
The last one that you asked me right before the Democratic primary, you said, how much faith do I have in that poll? I said, I put a lot more stock into that poll because it's going off actual votes. And I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a Zohran Mandani victory. Again, that poll was even inaccurate because they had Mandani winning after ranked choice voting came into play. And that's why I thought Mandani would win also, because of ranked choice voting. I didn't think he would beat him straight up, but it was about on point. Other than how Mandani wins, it was when you looked at how it played out. They called the race. They basically did. And I don't trust the polling totally, But again, I'm not basing what I'm saying off of polling. We have actual votes and support. You have the 2021 election to look at for Curtis Sliwa's support, like his base. And then you have the Democratic primary to look at for when we look at Zohran Mandani and Andrew Cuomo. You have nothing to look at for Eric Adams. It's all hype. It's all social media. It's all Midwest paid influencers that are all tweeting the same thing. It's you don't have anything to base Eric Adams on, because that 2021 campaign, that it was the Democratic primary winner, who he wouldn't even have found that came in 6th place. So when you look at how he would have placed in the Democratic primary, or you look how he would have replaced in the Republican primary, if an actual poll is being taken and anyone is analyzing what happened and what these votes are telling you, Eric Adams is not even anywhere near in double digits. I mean, he's at about 3%.
I just think that for the most part, these polls are unreliable. I think they're manipulated. And I think that, I mean, really where I started to understand why these polls can't be trusted was the 2016 election with Trump and Hillary Clinton. To me, I mean, I obviously that's on the national level, but I don't see how these polls can be trusted. I don't know how much faith, sometimes you get these text messages about what's going on with a poll, and like, do I actually believe that poll? Not necessarily. Do you think this poll is actually reflective of the Democratic primary we saw? And do you think that if it was based just on ranked choice voting, that it would be a different conversation?
Again, I think that this poll is based upon. I think that this poll is based upon what we saw. My only issue with this poll is I would put Curtis Sliwa closer to 30%. And I would put Eric Adams closer to a 2-3%. And I think that's an accurate poll based upon the votes that happened in the Democratic primary, based upon the polling that came out for the Republican primary, and based upon the fact that Eric Adams was smart enough not to engage in either of them. So when I don't totally align with this poll. And again, this is a right-leaning poll, so the favorability towards Adams rises a lot. So I don't totally agree with this poll, but it's very reflective, other than the bias towards Eric Adams. Do I rely on polls all the time? No, I don't. But like not all of them are totally off base. And again, if you just look at, we have the data points there. Forget just the polling New Yorkers. We have the data points to go off of. And if everybody was looking at that, if you're really concerned about beating a Zohran Mandani, there's only 2 people that could actually win and beat Zohran Mandani, and their names are Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa.
I don't want to take up Marlon's time and Sal's time, but I just want to say, Sal, I think you hit an important part of this election process. That's where it's extremely dangerous and irresponsible by John Shell electioneering in uniform. And it's what you said, Sal. It's the undecided. Because for those undecided at this point, they easily can now be manipulated or intimidated and feel meek to make a certain vote based on what they hear from the police department. Because safety is paramount, and that's one of the most important things in an election. If you live in New York City, that's one of the most important things to thrive. So I think when Sal, when you mentioned the undecided, that's a big problem. And you're right, as far as getting out to different areas in the boroughs. And I think that ultimately what we see when it comes to voting in New York City, it's not necessarily about population. You said Manhattan is one of the highest populations, right? Does it really matter at this point? It's who's getting out there to vote and who's actually making those decisions. So the undecideds, that's where the problem is.
Well, I'll say this. First of all, polls are a snapshot in time. It doesn't mean much because as you saw, I want to reiterate, the poll showed Mamdani in February or March at 3%. He now has an overwhelming lead in any of these market polls that shows he's 70% to win, no matter what's running underneath him. Eric Adams, when I stare at constantly favorabilities, that poll showed you a barometer of what you're looking at right now. So those swings of +5 for Mamdani, -4 Cuomo, -9 Sliwa, those could change pending on the next scandal that comes out. Obviously, Mamdani no one's attacked him. Eric Adams didn't attack him on purpose. They wanted to run against someone they believe could win but be weak, right? But Eric has a 70% unfavorability. Nobody wants to elect him mayor. I see some of these people in the chat. The Trump endorsement kills you. New York City views Trump in a 36% favorability. So Trump saying, I want Eric Adams, just destroyed him. He's finished. He's finished for good. You can't see that yet because you're living in that moment. And some of you actually believe New York City is MAGA. We have a friend of ours. He loves to make flags. I see him going crazy. He's like the 1%. New York City is loaded with people with purple hair. It's not going to work. They hate Trump in New York City. So you want him away from you. So again, Curtis, who everyone mentions, he didn't say he's against Trump. He didn't say he's not going to work with him. He's just like us. He's going to be critical of him. When he's good, we say great. When he's not, you got to call balls and strikes. You can't be the sycophant that Eric Adams has now become. So his association to Trump even was mentioned by not only some in the media, it's some in his own party. If he doesn't drop those affiliations, he's not going to get elected. But he can't. Why? Because he should be in prison. We shouldn't be having this discussion. He's a criminal. His whole entourage are criminals. It's like saying I'm going to elect, I don't know, Kwame Kilpatrick again. Remember him? He did the same thing that Eric Adams did. But that is the point. And that poll doesn't show and doesn't factor in the Republican vote, which has to stay around 30%. I mean, it's about 500,000 registered Republicans in the city right now, in the 5 boroughs. And of course, there's like 3 million registered Democrats. Some are independents. So you have to target that middle crowd. And I want to also reiterate the Muslim community, who are by nature conservatives, okay? They're very conservative if you look at their background. Attacking Mamdani because he's Muslim will drive those people that want to vote against him and his policies because they don't line up with the Muslim community right to him. People will vote against why you give the ad hominem attacks. I keep saying this over and over again. Folks, I've been doing this for a while, okay? And the king of this, is my close friend. You do not attack and disparage people because that will make voters vote in droves for that person. We saw this in the last election, which again, what did they say there? The guy that won the Democrat primary, they replaced it with the vice president, didn't get 1 vote, and they got crushed, which is what you want Sleever to do. Step down so the guy that nobody wants takes that spot, and he'll get crushed anyway. He's losing now. He's not going to win. There's no scenario Eric Adams wins other than everyone drops out. Me and John have pointed this out over and over again. But again, that poll, it's just a snapshot. And again, it doesn't give you the full story. And a lot of polls are like that.
Yeah, and just another point on that, like, a lot of young people are really upset with the rhetoric around him being a Muslim, and I get a lot of people like, oh, he's an Islamist and he supports this and he supports that. Yeah, I get that. But when you see a lot of the talking points that are coming out, they're not even pointing out those facts. They're only pointing out he's a Muslim, and younger generations are sick of it and they don't like it. And Republicans and I like Vicky. I like Vicky Palladino. I've been critical of her. She's been critical of the podcast. She's been a little too close to Kaz and Shell, in my opinion. She's not
and Steve Bannon,
and people that she shouldn't be. But she's helped to help win a Mandani with the rhetoric that she's been putting out there, and she should be sharpening it up. And I think everyone that's critical of Mandani should be sharpening up what they're saying and their points. And like you said, Sal, early on, it should be around his policy, not anything else, and that's where I think we've been missing a lot. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Sorry to cut you off, Marlon.
No worries. Just to go back on what you said, I don't necessarily think they're different. What I'm simply saying is you got limousine socialists with Cuomo and Adams, and then you got a latte socialist with Mandani. Okay, the difference is that Mandani is wealthy and he wants to portray the image of being, you know, I'm just an average guy, I'm just an average hipster, you know, young guy. Whereas a guy like Adams, he wants to portray that image like, oh, I'm loaded, you know. They're not necessarily different. What I'm simply saying is that Mandani is promising all the socialism, and when he gets there, that's not going to happen. Okay, because the money men are going to come to him and tell him how things are actually going to run. So in my belief, the three-card Mandani is thinking that either any one of these candidates are different when there's certain rules in place that in a lot of ways goes beyond them, that determine how things are actually going to run. And those rules are determined by people like Bill Aikman, you know, people like Brock Pierce, people who have a lot of money and a
100%. 100%. But what I was alluding to is the fact that those conversations already happened. They're already part of the same network. Like, that's what I'm saying. You're saying these conversations are going to happen should he win. I'm saying these conversations already happened. It's the same. They're all working for the same network. Oh yeah, here's the further left guy. Here's the little guy that's not as far left, and here's the guy that's not as far left. And what I'm saying is the big money is already behind all three of them. So they're all hedging their bets with all three of them, and those conversations have already happened. That's what I was saying. I wasn't saying that you were suggesting they were different. I just meant that they're working towards different goals, and I just don't believe so. That's what I meant. I didn't mean it that you were saying that they were actually different.
Yeah. Well, with that said, I still think Eric Adams is their guy. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because Eric Adams is, I've said this before, the man's a sociopath. Eric Adams, they love Eric Adams. And the reason why they love Eric Adams is because Eric Adams, in my opinion, will do the things that a lot of politicians won't do. They'll walk close to that line, but some of them won't cross it. And Adams is a guy who I think will cross it, and he don't care. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I look at his behavior during the scamdemic. And even during the scamdemic, I heard comments from Cuomo that were like, kind of gave me the sense that he kind of, there were some boundaries there. Whereas Eric Adams, like, you know, you look what he did with getting rid of the workers, you know, and this is something that some of these big corporate guys love. They love seeing a guy in government who's going to be ready to kick out half the workforce, you know. They love that because in the private sector, that's what they do. If push comes to shove and they gotta make some cuts, they don't care, you know. You've been there 20 years. Oh, all right, who cares? Yeah, they're ruthless opportunists. And they have ruthless ambition to make sure their will is happens. You know, they have a lot of money on the line and they don't want to lose billions of dollars. So that's, in my opinion, they like Eric Adams for that. And Eric Adams has experience in the sectors of business that they're trying to operate in the real estate and, you know, casinos. I mentioned before his past in the state senate. So he already knows the game. He's already been there, and his agenda for the city of Yes is beneficial to them. Yeah, sure, Mandani could come in or Cuomo could come in and continue that, but this is Eric Adams' agenda, and Eric Adams says they've already said that they don't care what the community boards have said, whether they don't want it or not. They're going to find a way to get around. And Ingrid Martin Lewis she's made some comments about that, which fall in line with that. They don't care what the boards. So my thinking is that Eric Adams is the guy who's going to push through things that a lot of politicians won't. And I'm not necessarily sure if Mamdani has the balls to do it either, because again, he's a young guy, and you have to worry about your political future when you're doing a lot of these things. So
I want to say this. Oh, good.
The guy, in my opinion. So I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I thought you would tell me your thought, but I just want to say this. I think that I agree. America first. I believe New York City first, especially when it comes to the mayoral candidacy. And I believe that Mamdani should be analyzed based on his policies and not for being Muslim. Totally agree with that. But there is something that I think is very sensitive and hits the hearts and minds of Jewish, potential Jewish voters in New York City. And that is the provocative reference of global intifada. And I don't think that Mamdani has condemned it at all. I mean, he was questioned about global intifada and he did not condemn it. He kind of tap danced around it. And yes, it's something that has to deal with Palestinian resistance. For some global intifada, it represents peaceful resistance, but there is some deep dives into global intifada where it actually symbolizes and references to ethnic divide, religious divide, politics, and violence. And that's where I think the problem is and leads people to look at him as a potential anti-Semite and not just his policies, because he has not condemned global intifada, which is very sensitive to Jewish people, not just in Israel, but in New York City, because it is known for violence and it's known for that rhetoric. And
but Eric, Mamdani has over 20% of the Jewish vote already.
I was actually, you're 100% right, and I was going to get into that, which is there is a high percentage of Jewish voters for Mamdani that look past that, but there are a lot of people that look at that he has not condemned global intifada, and that's why they see him, in my opinion, as an anti-Semite, and they see him as this potential Muslim terrorist for that reason.
I agree with you, dude. Like that's not, but that's knocking his policy, right? Because he's said it, so you replay that video over and over again. What they start talking about, and I've seen it all over Twitter and all over social media, is that, oh, you're going to elect this guy, and they're going to start chopping women's heads off and throwing them off the buildings. And I'm like, wait a minute, time out. Like, where are you getting that from? Like, let's keep it real. It's the same thing. Listen, Eric Adams, how many racist statements has Eric Adams said? Racist statement after racist statement after racist statement. He basically demonized all of us. He said Sal was trying to overthrow the country. All of us are white supremacists, including Marlon. We're all domestic terrorists. Why? Because we supported Donald Trump, right? We were white supremacist, domestic terrorists just 6 months ago, and now he flipped on a dime because he needed to keep himself out of jail and wanted to stay in power. And like, I can't sit there and compare Eric Adams to the South African president who wants to kill all the farmers. It's just not a fair comparison. Yeah, he's a racist. He's an ignorant loser. But if I make those claims, they're inflammatory and they're not accurate, and it's gonna detract from actually what he said and what he's done. And that's what we're saying has happened. I totally agree. It's horrible that he hasn't denounced it. I totally agree with you. But like, we were talking about literally just knocking him because he's a Muslim and like basically attributing any horrific act that has came out from extremist Muslim Islamic extremists and attributing that to him and his policies. And that's where you start to lose the young people, because it's just not accurate. You know what I mean? And like, that's it. I don't compare. We joked around. We made some memes about Eric Adams, being the South African president and all that. But like, he never took it that far, and we criticized the things he said, not what he could potentially do or potentially have done. And I think a lot of that's getting lost on the right. And then when you look at this, I just want to play this because a lot of people in here are saying that Trump hasn't endorsed Eric Adams, and he 100% has. He hasn't came out in a full endorsement of Eric Adams, but he's literally says he's a great guy here, and he's completely off base here. He has no idea what Eric Adams is an awful human being, and you could just sit and look at what he's done to Marlon Bethel and thousands of people like him, and that just tells you what type of person Eric Adams is. But I think this harms Eric Adams in New York City votes more than anything. Like, listen to Donald Trump.
He's going to turn out to be much less than a communist, but right now he's a communist. That's not a socialist. I've always said we will not have socialism in this country. In the speeches, I said, well, what? They skipped socialism, and you got a lot of them like that. And you see AOC, she's out there with her, bad IQ. she's out there ranting and raving about how wonderful he is. And look, so far he's winning. He still has a race to win, but so far he's winning, and he has an advantage as a Democrat in New York City. I was there a long time ago, and it was a long time since a Republican won the city. Yeah, but you would think that a Republican would be able to win. Or you have a good independent running, Mayor Adams, who's a very good person. I helped him out a little bit. He had a problem, and he was unfairly hurt over this question. He made a statement to the effect that this is terrible. New York City can't have all these immigrants come in. And like he was indicted the following day. And I said, that was a phony indictment. And it was a phony indictment. That was a Biden indictment. I said, don't feel bad. I got indicted 5 times every time you opened your mouth. That was a bad group.
So, Trump is pushing low information talking points right here,
100%.
And like when you listen to that, I mean, he was rightfully indicted. He defrauded taxpayers out of $10 million. He accepted bribes, some of which included the upgrades to airlines. But I mean, overall, the man should have been removed from office. He's easily corruptible. So Trump basically comes out and endorses him. And where was he in the primary? Where was he prior to that? And someone had pointed out too, like concerning the Jewish vote too, that don't be shocked if Mandani loses a lot of that Jewish vote too, because Eric Adams wanted to run against Zohran Mandani. He did not want to run against Andrew Cuomo. Don't be shocked if the same people that voted for Zohran Mandani in the Democratic primary wind up, as it concerns the Jewish vote, wind up voting for Eric Adams in the primary because they were told to vote against Cuomo in the Democratic primary. Don't be shocked. So I think there was a little inflation in that too as well. So, but that hurts Eric Adams right there. It doesn't help Eric Adams vote in New York City, in my opinion.
You know what? I'll say this, right? So there's some people in the chat right now, friends and listeners, who are saying that there are plenty of Jews that love Mamdani, that voted for him. The Hasidic community loves Eric Adams, and I agree. Now, and I believe this comes to all ethnicities and all religions, that even with potential rhetoric that may be damaging to Jewish people, that there may be some anti-Semitism, but you know what trumps that? Is exactly what I've been saying. And Marlon and I speak about this all the time. The economic wheel in New York City trumps people's feelings. It trumps their emotions. And that's the wealthy individuals and these organizations that have special interest in New York City. And they're going to vote. Excuse me. They're going to vote who makes them money. Even if they don't like that person, even if that person is anti-Semitic, even if that person's racist, they're going to vote. And Marlon, I'm sure you can agree on this. They're going to vote who's going to make them money, because that's the most important thing. And that's why this election is completely lost all democracy, because it's completely influenced. It's influenced by uniformed personnel in the NYPD. It's influenced by high prolific people such as Trump. I think that Trump shouldn't be doing that at all. We didn't go further on the video, but what does Trump also say? Trump also says that if Mamdani gets elected, and if he's going to have socialist policies in New York City, that New York City is not going to get funding. So that's telling the people, if you go vote for Mandani, you're violating, you're going against me. And I don't think he should be doing that. And I support Trump, but I don't think he should be doing that. I don't want Mandani either, but I don't think that we should be distorting the election process in this country. And that's why I say I don't believe these polls. 2016 was the biggest indication. Ever since then, I said I don't believe these polls at all. But I really think that this election process is just completely distorted. It's not organic. It's completely influenced, and it's sad. We've lost all democratic process, and New York City is symbolic of that. And it's a pinnacle. This is like a pinnacle moment in history. We look at this, it's like, wow, what is going on here? We have all these people dumping all this money in New York City so that they can get Eric Adams in because they have special interest. We have all these people dumping money. And I think Marlon makes a great point. Or I think it was John. Maybe it was Sal. I'm not sure. Who knows? But could people that voted for Mamdani switch their vote and end up going Eric Adams because people are like, wow, he's the guy. MAGA says he's the guy. That's where we need to make money. Yeah, I think that vote could change.
No, Eric, what I was saying is that they were intentionally voting for Zoran, so to beat Cuomo, so he's not the Democratic primary, to try to give Eric Adams a shot. I was saying that like they were colluding.
Yeah. You know what? And I'll give you credit, John, because I have to say you have foreshadowed this race. I think I got to go back and I think it was maybe 6 months ago that you went back and said this, and you did foreshadow this. And I remember you saying about a 5-man race and the political strategy here. And I know Sal said it too about Eric Adams running as independent. Because the reality is, if Eric Adams was on the Democratic card, this conversation wouldn't be had. This would be a total different conversation, and this wouldn't be a race. But the question is, why? And Sal, maybe you can answer this: is why do people actually believe that Eric Adams is the savior? Why do they believe that he could actually get these votes when even with this poll not being solidified, we can't trust it?
Well, it's been a campaign of propaganda. First of all, you've heard a lot of him being a victim, which is he started it, and so did many in the Steve Bannon camp. All these people that helped get him off the case, which is unethical and illegal, the emo boves. So that is one thing, because remember, what would people flock to? I was victimized. I was a target of the government, but it's not true. He was no target. He's a criminal. Secondarily, the Trump endorsement is a nail in the coffin. And it's not so much him saying, oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, well, he got indicted after he spoke out. No. All due respect, Mr. President, it was you in 2017, your DOJ, that started the prosecution of Eric Adams. It went to multiple administrations. It went to multiple heads of the DOJ. There was no collusion with DOJ in that instance. People, they're trying to make you think that the Trump indictment is the same as Eric Adams. It's not even, it's two separate things. Trump's indictments, yes, they're fugazi.
Sal, it's not just people. Sal, it's not just people. It's Trump telling them that.
Yeah.
What did Trump say? Oh, the next day he was indicted. He never said anything that was in opposition to Biden. He said he believed in open borders.
It's all a lie. He doesn't even realize. I'm sure he knows his puppet mayor was not only big with sanctuary cities, he let illegals. He took $8 billion of taxpayer money and funded the migrant crisis in New York City. $8 billion. He mismanaged everything. The only reason he's still alive today in this political field, he didn't do the 2 primaries. He knew that. And now they're going to try to actually propagate him up and make you believe he has 85% of New York. Because when he beat Sleewa the first time, he had 66% of the vote, but he was only 1-on-1. It was 2 people running. That's it. Curtis versus Eric Adams in a city that is 7-1 Democrat. You're right. That's why he won with 66% of the vote. Now we're looking at of course, people are not talking about this other than John and myself. The voter turnout for the primary was huge compared to the last one. That is a big number. There are more voters voting. That does not favor. That's another problem. If more voters are voting, then whatever stupid model people are looking at from last time is going to be their mistake. They did the same thing in the presidential election. The polls kept showing Trump lower than where he actually ended up, because there's people that don't do surveys, don't listen to polls. They go, I'm going to vote. I'm scared to death of what's going to happen, which again, the Trump election was a lot of fear mongering. Kamala Harris doesn't know what she's doing and she doesn't, but there was a lot of fear mongering there. So you had extra people show up, and here you're getting the same thing. Oh, I don't know. Somehow Mamdani is they're making it appear that he's a jihadist, and he's not. And they're using this to try to fearmonger and say Eric Adams, oh, he's like the Jewish savior now, even though he's the anti-Semite, by the way. He's Louis Farrakhan's boy. He's been his friend since the NYPD. He's been associating with that criminal since then. Okay, another mistake. Eric Adams' unfavorability plus the Trump hysteria. And the reason that Trump actually saved him from being in jail is why he's never going to be elected. To me, he's done unless all three step down, including Jim Walden. Jim Walden have to step down to make Eric Adams the only guy to vote for. So that's the only way he wins. But there's a lot of propaganda here. And Mamdani is actually a capitalist. He is. You would see him in there. He's going to do the bidding of those lobbyists and special interests. That's why he's even there to begin with. Everything else is, how do I get elected? And the biggest thing that's still out in the open, you guys should know, there's a scandal waiting in the wings. Mamdani has rode this. No one has said anything. And I'm telling you, look at his rap career. There's something there. And that's all I could really say right now. There's something there. It'll come out between now and November that will drag him down. No one's factoring these things in yet because those polls are a snapshot. Curtis Sliwa is not corrupt. We already know his business. There's nothing there. What has he done? Has he stolen money? Somebody said, oh, he lied to the police in 1999. I hate to tell the Joe Coppers out there, the NYPD actually has an unfavorability. People don't like the police. I mean, that's why we have all these issues in New York City because of everything that's happened. You have to earn the trust of the public. So he did something. He lied to the police. Okay, they're going to go, all right, well, we would do the same thing. We don't want you taking reports and label us criminals either. That's from the 90s. Nobody even cares. From the 90s till now, Curtis has proven that he's an honorable human being, knows the issues, and he's pro-public safety, unlike the other three that really don't care. So that's the issue here. I'm zeroing this down to what you should know, and you should follow. If you don't, low information is going to win, and you're going to get a Mamdani mayorship, unfortunately.
Yeah. So any last thoughts on this? Let's move on. Let's get on to whatever's happening in the NYPD before we break out of here. Just real quick, I'm just going to give my last thoughts on the mayoral race. It's a scam. Any Republicans, conservatives, moderates, you start pushing Eric Adams, you guarantee Mandani victory. And I think if Cuomo does drop out of the race, like Al Sharpton's suggesting, it's lights out. I think Mandani wins with over 50% of the vote, and there's nobody on the field that could pull that chance. The best chance right now is you get the best chance for a difference and a change right now is Curtis Sliwa. Get behind him, 5-way race. You get him to that 35%, he easily beats that. He really only needs 33%, but you get him to that 35%, he easily beats Mandani. So that's my final thoughts. Marlon, I know we skipped you. What's your final thoughts on the mayor race before we move on to the NYPD?
Yeah, again, those of you watching can never accuse us of all thinking the same on the show, you know? Because clearly we come at this from different angles, and my angle is strictly the money. I don't care about these polls. I don't care about any of that. I'm looking at the money. I'm looking at the guys who have more to lose in this, so to speak, and they're not going to lose. Okay, they're not. If you're a billionaire CEO, you got to be a billionaire CEO by being ruthless. Okay. Ruthless, and you will not lose. You do not like losing. You do not like losing billions of dollars. Okay, so with that said, I think where we might be underestimating how much of the young Zohan's younger voters are going to show up for the general election too. But I mean, in the last election, sure, the turnout was was smaller compared to this one. But only about 2/3 of them showed up for the general election. And to me, this seems a lot like Bernie Sanders, you know? And in the case of Bernie Sanders in 2016, we already know that the DNC, Donna Brazil, Wasserman Schultz, and Hillary Clinton were all conspiring behind the scenes to game the system so that Bernie didn't win, even though the younger base of the Democratic Party loved Bernie. What happened in the end? They gamed the system. You know, Bernie was kicked to the curb, and later on, Bernie got his nice book deals and his touring deals, and then Bernie went quietly into the night. You know, hardly mentions it these days. You know, and Bernie incidentally stopped talking about the millionaires and billionaires. Now he only talks about the billionaires because now he's a millionaire too. Okay, so my point is that well, don't underestimate them to game the system, so that the guys who have the massive interest in this, the corporations, don't underestimate them gaming the system so that their front runner wins it, and that even a guy like Zohan goes away quietly in the night. Okay, because if they make some backdoor deals with him, I'm sure whatever they game the system, however they game the system, I'm sure he's gonna go quietly into the night like Bernie. Okay, so that's my point. Okay,
Bernie never had a real job.
Oh, and one more thing, just about these guys, the guys in suits. Okay, before Trump got there, Trump was like, "We're deporting everybody. They're all getting deported." Right? What happened 2 weeks ago? The guys in suits came and be like, "Well, we need those guys in the restaurants. We need those illegals on the farms." Now what Trump's saying, "Oh, we got to have amnesty." So my point is, do not there's a reality. There's what these guys want, and then there's reality. And the reality is the guys in suits, the system created by these guys in the suits is how all these politicians work under. And it's these guys in the suits that their will is their will must be done. Okay. And they're ruthless about it. They will get it done by almost any means necessary. They will get it done. So,
Marlon, before we go to, I'm just curious. Are you comparing, because Bernie Sanders is a complete socialist. Are you comparing him as a socialist compared to Mamdani, or just talk about the money that's behind it? Because I agree with the money.
Well, Bernie is old school socialist. Mamdani's one of these latte socialists who grew up in money, like AOC grew up in money. They're rich, but they would like to portray the image of, I'm just a regular, I'm a hipster, I'm a hipster socialist,
Yeah.
Where what I'm saying is there forces behind all of this. The forces that run the system, they exert their will on the political game, and they game the system to their advantage. And that's all I'm saying.
I think it's a great point. It goes back to the economic wheel we're talking about and the influence on these wealthy individuals and organizations for their own special interest. I think the green dollar is more powerful than emotions, more powerful than ethnicity. It's more powerful than intifada. It's the green dollar.
Move on. Sal, anything on it, or you're done with it?
Well,
Listen, I'm all in. I agree with you, but what the only difference in our statement is that I'm telling you that all three are backed by Al Sharpton, the big money, and all three are backed by Bill Ackman and the likes of all of them. All three are backed by big money. They already hedged their bets. That's all. That's the only difference. They're not losing. That's all I'm telling you. The only way they lose is if a Curtis Lewa gets elected. You need people that are malleable. And I totally get your assessment is that most people, not even just politicians who are the sleaziest of us, most people will not do what the guy running a hustle his entire life, Eric Adams, would do. And they won't bend the laws. So, yeah, it is more favorable if Adams wins. But I think that they're pushing towards the line. And that's why, let's talk about the kingmaker reel here, John Catsimatidis, who plays the entire conservative Republican base in New York City and pretends like he's a conservative. He puts these big hosts out, including Curtis Lewa. He lets them talk about conservative talking points and rally against all of the candidates he backs and supports. He's right now in the Hamptons. What did he do this weekend? He had a big fundraiser for Eric Adams, same as he did last time. And who else was he been big donations to? Cuomo, right? I wouldn't be shocked if you look at it and you see some Mandani money there too. I haven't really been looking at it, but I wouldn't be shocked there too. So, when you look at it, the big money supports the left. They do not never support the right candidates in New York, and they definitely don't support any people with integrity. And Curtis Lewa said it here. He eats the cheese, so he's not going to deal with the corruption. So,
Nope. And that's why I want to mention too. Yeah, everyone, there's going to be a scandal that comes up somewhere. It always happens. Every election is always like some kind of surprise. There's been nothing on Mamdani that will factor into a little bit of a fall for him. Cuomo's being quiet because actually he does have the best chance to beat Mamdani So again, this race is still very early. Everyone jumping on bandwagons. Curtis is the only guy who's not corrupt other than Jim Walden. He really does have a chance. I'm not saying Jim doesn't, but Jim, he's been on our shows. And where is he? Fox doesn't even nobody mentions him. Social media will play a part in this, but not the guys from Tennessee. So when you see people with 300,000 likes, they're not getting 300,000 likes from New York City residents. That's all influencer, bots, whatever you want to call it. So I see the race as being what I think, what I've been telling you. Expect the surprise. There'll be a slight fall from Mamdani at a certain point. Curtis will be right there. No matter what anyone says in these comments, he will be there. He's a Republican candidate. Eric is going nowhere. I don't care. John Katz, whoever it is, wants to put money behind him. It's a losing bet. And the Trump stuff is probably the nail in the coffin for him anyway in New York City. So I do agree with a lot of you guys' points, but I'm in my final thought. That's what I think, that there will be a surprise that brings Mamdani back to earth per se. But a huge voter turnout. Expect there's going to be a huge voter. Unlike all the other elections, there will be a much larger voter turnout in this election, unlike all the previous ones prior in New York City mayor race.
I will say, I will say this: Sam Antar, who's been doing great investigative work throughout New York City and New York State, did pull up some dirt on Mamdani. Frank puts the comment right here in the chat, friend and listener. Sam Antar is reporting on Mamdani's recent suspicious campaign finance book cooking. Yeah, they all have some dirt on them. Eric Adams has the most dirt on them, but clearly Mamdani too.
And the last thing, one more thing too, Eric, is the other three candidates all have a record that you could go on. So you can point to Cuomo's record, Mamdani's record, and Adams' record. Curtis doesn't have one. That always is a big factor. You're the one. You could be the aggressor. The other three have to defend. So remember that in the future.
Listen, Curtis was on here Wednesday, and excuse me, I was blown away by his energy, by his integrity, and by his leadership. And you could tell it's authentic. He loves New York City. And the fact that he's not getting the backing and the support just shows the mirage that goes on in New York City. And the political process in New York City is just completely tainted. And it's the dollar bill that's the most important thing. And we're being bamboozled to believe that there's no Republicans in this race. Curtis Lewa, that's just noise. These are the three you have to pick from. Just as Jimmy Wagner showed you, these are the three cards. You don't see Curtis Lewa. It's in his pocket. This is disgusting. John, let's get to the next segment, brother.
Yeah, well, I think Marlon should kick this off, since he was the one that broke news about this prior to the announcement of Henderson retiring. So, Marlon, why don't you walk us through what you were saying?
Yeah, guys. So that's another reason why you watch the Finest Unfiltered, because that's another reason why you watch the network, because we let you know what's going to happen like weeks ahead. So the issue with Henderson is that Henderson has, Sal had on John Scola weeks ago, right? Where Scola noted the allegations that Captain Gabby Wall made against Henderson of sexual harassment. And so he's already had that on his record, But we've also, like I said a couple weeks ago, Henderson has a detective working under him who for 1 year, she was working at home and earning overtime while she was at home. Okay. Now, that detective's mother used to play a prominent role in the 8-3 community council. Her name is Barbara Smith, right? So Barbara Smith her health kind of deteriorated, and the detective asked to stay home and take care of her. Now, I believe executives can specifically get permission to have you work at home or take an extended leave. I'm not sure the exact rules about that. I'll leave that to the bosses, to the guys who were former bosses and the executives that we have on the network to speak more about that. But anyway, she was given, Henderson allowed her to work at home. And when her mother passed away in December of 2014, she came back to work. And upon coming back to work, Henderson told her, "Nah, you could go back home." So she went back home for another 2 or 3 months and was working from home again. Came back in again and told, and Henderson gave her permission to go back home again. And at that point, there was another cop who needed time off for they had a situation where they wanted to take a little time off as well, and they weren't granted it. And they dropped the word is that they dropped it, they went to internal affairs with it. Now, internal affairs group 1 interviewed Henderson, and he actually lied about giving that cop, allowing that cop to go back home even after her mother had passed away and to work from home. He basically threw it all on the cop, and the cop was then transferred to Queens Central Booking, and the job has told her basically she can't retire now. She was supposed to retire this summer. They're telling her that she has to work a full year and give that pay back to the job. And basically Tish has gotten tired of Henderson's crap and has told him that he's out. He's out. Now Henderson, from what I hear, was trying to pressure the cop to accept the judgment, to not fight it, right? Accept the penalties, not fight it. And he was going to put pressure on Tish by maybe using racism, and using the fact that he's a black chief being pushed out. Now I don't know how that went, but
he's got an O in his last name, so he's got an O in his last name.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know how that played out, but it looks like he's lost that fight, and Tish has exerted control over the department, and he's out. But this is a guy whose name has come up many times before, and you would have think he would have laid low and like realized, like, listen, this is not Caban's department anymore. This is not Madry's department. This is not Banks' department anymore. But I guess not. I guess that hubris and arrogance still remains there. And well, this is the result. Now he's out. And the whole thing is he wanted to have a nice proper walkout, right? He did not want the job didn't want this coming out, right? So I want to see how that walkout's going to be, So
yeah, it's funny how that pamphlet for him for his retirement, it doesn't reflect all that. It makes it look like this guy's just got the best career, and they're gonna give him a walkout. It's the biggest bullshit. That's why, listen, I'm proud to say, when I left and I retired, I was like, I don't want any of that. I don't want to walk out. I left like a thief in the night. But what a total scam. But you're right. Listen, these guys are so arrogant, and they're just used to getting away with it. That's why, if anyone has an opportunity, when John Scola was on with Sal Greco, that was an awesome episode because John Scola laid it out so well. And the way he explained it was the NYPD doesn't look to solve problems. They just pay. They just pay so they can continue to play. Hey, we had a problem. There's a lawsuit that comes up. They just pay so that the upper echelon can still play, And what's funny, Marlon, he talked about Group 1. I'm just curious if Travis Rutherford was involved helping out investigate that case. I'm sure, because he's so professional and so intelligent. I'm sure Travis Rutherford was working on that case. John, you think Travis Rutherford is helping out on that case? He was
probably called 911 and was helping the 911. I was trying to investigate it with the 911 operator. He's like, yeah, I don't know. You can see anything over there? He's like, this idiot, do you know I'm a 911?
He was probably trying to refer the case to the Brooklyn North, the janitor over there,
Oh, I love it. Rob Blue Cash, my brother right here, Executive Perspective. He says it. I didn't walk out. I ran. Exactly. I never understood that. Listen, I never understood those walkouts. Honestly, because like for me too, I was a special operations lieutenant. I worked at night, And if they do the walkout, they wanted to do it during the day. And, my guys weren't going to be able to come during the day. It would be all the people clapping for me that didn't know me or, that didn't even care. I see some guys have mariachi bands. I'm like, what's going on here?
Dude, there's so many walkouts and so little people that are coming back that you hear the job made 20 and a half years old now to take the job.
Yeah,
it's no longer 21. They just lowered it to 20 and a half now. It's like, but everything's fine. Everything's fine. Locker room's in a good place. Don't worry about it. Everything's good.
Playing offense.
But by the way, you guys keep hearing rumors about like these chiefs under some federal investigation. Like I don't know anything about it, but people keep
another one.
No, they keep saying that some of these chiefs are under some federal investigation.
Dude, if it wasn't for Trump, all these guys would be in jail. Like if it wasn't for Trump, they would be in jail.
Marlon, Trump, he paused all these investigations. Everyone, Caban, you would have seen everything. You would have seen the end of all this stuff. But this guy, I don't know, they're trading crypto or whatever it is in the background. You got Boris, you got Emo Bove, you got Brock Pierce. You have did we forget that Eric Adams' friend abducted an Italian national and extorted him for crypto with Eric Adams' NYPD security detail? Forgot. I guess that one is not on the map. Nobody wanted to mention that one. Nobody.
That's so funny. We didn't even mention that. You're 100% right. I totally forgot about that. I mean, we talk about crypto all the time. We didn't even mention that.
Yeah.
I got a question.
You guys aren't talking about the most important thing. Like this is coming from Kaz Daughtry's Twitter. We're back to Shark Week in New York City, and now this is what the drones are being used for. Remember, what were the drones used for? They were used for the drones were always used as a supportive measure for ESU and to do breaches and barricaded. Like Kaz Daughtry did not invent the wheel with that one. That's been happening forever. But like what's happened on the Kaz Daughtry that's different is now we watch sharks in their natural habitat. So Kaz Daughtry plays this video so that I found a shark, boss, all the way 2 miles off the sea, boss. And so, like, that's it. So he gets to post this on social media, a shark in its natural habitat. It's like, thanks, Kaz.
John,
we appreciate it.
Speaking of natural habitat, could you let the friends and listeners know, like, where you're at? Because they're all concerned. They think you're in jail. Like, let them know where you're at.
I'm in an undisclosed location in the confines of the 5 boroughs in New York City. That's all you people need to know. When I'm going to start doing videos, I'll let you guys know where I'm at when and where. But
John is about to be questioned by the squad.
Oh yeah, the drones are coming. They're looking for John right now. They're like, he's not near the sharks.
Maybe John's in the basement of Sobro Gardens, so him and Jimmy could have that discussion he wanted to have when he threatened them over a year ago.
So speaking of Sobro Garden, has Trump ever been there, or do you think he's going to go there?
He walked by his other place, that other barbershop that he went to in the Bronx. On the same corner is what would be on paper is called at Jimmy's, 1151 Castle Avenue. But that's where allegedly they took the food from to go to Sobro Gardens because Sobro Gardens has no gas. But the NYPD doesn't know anything. They're only hanging out there every night. Mr. Scott Henderson included, by the way.
Before we go on, John, I just want to, just to wrap up the last segment, right? For those of you who had to fight for your jobs during this scandemic, and those of you in a similar situation to me and John, here it is, a cop that was given a year to work at home, right? I personally was suspended for 3 months for not taking a vax from November until February, right? And then in February they told me, "Oh, you gotta get a shot. You're a danger to the workforce." Oh, and later on I find out I was fired in February. And here it is, a cop was home the entire year, and this is from I believe it's in 2023. So the scamdemic was over by then, but this cop gets to stay home, right? Stay home a whole year, right? But me, like, being suspended for 3 months is a danger to the workforce, so I got to get fired. So this is part of the unfairness that we keep talking about, and the inequity of this job. How ridiculous it is that this is happening. And I, for one, I'm happy you got 4-star Chief Henderson. Because did you give the same treatment to those guys in the borough who did not want to get that medical experiment? No, you didn't. You didn't. Okay, because it probably wasn't in your interest. Okay, we know that you're just like Marjorie, so you have to wonder about why that cop got such treatment. So
I got your back any day. You're absolutely right.
He was running around with baby oil in his hands.
That's right. Scott Henderson, another bump. I got your back any day of the week, Marlon. You're absolutely right.
If it's true, listen, if what you say is true, that he lied again, another guy that perjured himself during a GO who follows the same footing as Kaz Daughtry, he should be terminated right now. He should be not allowed to do anything. What walkout? You're a disgrace to the job, just like Kaz Daughtry, who got promoted 8 ranks for committing perjury. Not once, but twice. Misleading statements. They said I gave misleading statements. So how was he getting around it, Scott?
You know what I realized by all this, Sal? And that's why I said the other day when we have a thread when we're all talking, I said the only mistake that Marlon made, and I realized that we all made the same mistake, is having integrity. Because if we would have cheated on our taxes, we would have made chief of department. If we would have lied, right? We would have given false statements. We would have been promoted by rocket fuel. The only thing we did wrong, I couldn't get promoted because of CCRBs, but I told the truth, and I was trying to fight them. Marlon got fired because he told the truth. John had to leave because he told the truth, and so did you. That's the mistake we made. Integrity.
I think you know what our mistake is? We didn't go to con sofrito. We would have got everything we wanted. That would have been it.
Yeah, if you would have got baby oil and took Adam's splooge all over your face, you would have definitely, we'd all be fine, because that's what it is. And don't tell me it's funny, right? Like, even with the Diddy thing that just came out, that like, oh, they didn't find them guilty on this and that, and like, we're never gonna see what was on those tapes or know who was there. I mean, there's a lot of deviance. There's a lot of deviance in our political game, and there's a lot of deviance at the top of the upper echelons of the NYPD. Sexual criminal deviance that don't deserve to be there. And so, yeah, I don't play those games. I don't like looking at other dudes naked with baby oil all over them. I know a lot of them do, but and I don't like abusing women or misusing my authority, and none of you guys do either. So, and that's what they do, and that's what you need to do to get ahead in the criminal enterprise that is the chocolate administration, So, and then here's one other point about the drones, right? We were told that these drones were saving lives and stopping subway surfers, other than just helping and assisting during Shark Week. And here, a young man just lost his life last night subway surfing. So where were the drones there? Where was the drone program then? Remember all the lives saved and all that nonsense. I'm not going to play the video, but I just thought to highlight that they're out there chasing sharks, and they're and counting that. And by the way, he's counting that as life saved. Like he's like it's insane. Like you saw a shark in the water, and you're counting it as a life save. It's I don't know. I don't understand it. And I know that there's a lot going on in New York City. Anything you guys want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I just want to say,
because John covered something I covered on the show, was the sexual assault thing in One Police Plaza. You had Lieutenant Healy and Detective Foster, and I understand that both of them allegedly, they say they hooked up. And it's funny, as Scola represents Haley and Eric Sanders represents Foster, but we found out, to the behest of others that are running around behind the scenes trying to run cover, Healy had already had complaints on her from EEO, from other cops, and wherever she goes, whatever command she goes through, whether it's 1PP, Brooklyn North, the 5-2 now, there's always a female that she's abusing. The word is that she's the female Marjorie. That's what she is, essentially. And again, there was a sexual assault that happened on the 6th floor of One Police Plaza. And we have to, Jessica Tish is so great. She got transferred and demoted. What happened to being modified and suspended? You suspended Epps for being a victim to Marjorie, and then you let Marjorie walk. Marjorie, he shouldn't even have it. Right now, he should have been not only suspended, he should have been terminated for everything that went on. You never did one investigation. You let him walk, and he's gone. And you had no findings with him. not him and not any of his underlings that were involved in that. It's all hush hush, just like your own case with John and Eric. So that was the latest scandal that happened. John wrote the articles. I gave all the other tidbits. There's a 49 that proves that Healy has other complainants and an EEO. She's facing charges right now. All of this was left out. And 1PP is actually, I understand, they're fuming. And we're trying to kill this story from being written because you can't stop it when we're talking about it or when it's posted somewhere like John had. So hats off to John for writing that. You are pissed off just about everyone in the upper echelon, but they won't. They'll just be partying at Sobro Gardens later tonight, so it doesn't matter. Wepa, 4th of July.
The baby oil will come out anyway. Don't worry.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I just want to say this because I said this yesterday on a thread, but I'm going to say this to the public, friends, listeners. If Eric Adams does not get reelected, I'm calling for a commission to fix this corruption, and it will be called the Finest Unfiltered Commission. The Finest Unfiltered Commission to bring all this corruption front and center and make it right. So I'm calling it right now.
I would like that. That would be great. And investigating the Crumbs crew. I don't know. Find the Crumbs.
You know what? It bothers me. I keep thinking about it. Just to go back, not to go totally back, but just think about it, right? Like Marlon, if Marlon would have made a fake vaccine card, he'd still be employed by the NYPD. Like, how crazy is that? So would John, right? Like, if you would have known, like, hey, I just make a fake card, I lose 70 days, I'm still employed, I get a pension. Wow. I mean, all you got to do is give up your integrity.
There was a detective who was transferred to a precinct in Staten Island, and then later on, like a couple months later, he got back to Intel. Here's my question: how was he able to testify ever again? Yeah, how does that work? If you perjured, if you lied, I don't understand. But again, these are things that the job does that don't make any sense right now. So
sick, dude. It's disgusting. Honestly, I can't even talk about it because it just disgusts me to even bring it up. And here you got people. Eric Adams is gonna save us. Like, if he's gonna save you, dude. You know, all right, whatever. So, all right, guys. Anything else before we run?
No, hell of a show. Roundtable on Friday. I hope everyone has an awesome 4th of July. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back Monday, of course. What a week. I mean, New York City is a content machine. This was a powerful week. If you haven't got a chance to look back, I think the interview you did with Sal, the interview you did yesterday was great. I thought, I called it. I said that was dope. It was great. Hell of a week, man, with the executive perspective. And of course, check out the new show next week. Again, we had the pilot episode. That's 10-4 Tavern. So there's a show for all different tastes. All right, you got John and myself, and you got the executive perspective, Sal Greco's show. You got 10-4 Tavern, and then you got Marlon, on our roundtables. Oh, you got a lot of content. Friends and listeners, thank you for the engagement. We appreciate it.
Oh, one more thing. Later on, we're gonna post up the spaces that we did on the primary night. You guys should go listen to that. There are a lot of good points made there, but also you guys should get an X account. Okay, just make an anonymous X account so that you can participate when we have these conversations on X. So we're gonna have more X spaces. So again, those of you who are always in the chat, it'd be nice if you come to our X spaces as well. So
yeah, and if you do make an account on X, you can name it every one, each cop, NYPD Baby Oil 1, 2, 3 down the line, so on and so forth. That could be your anonymous account. Everybody, thanks. Not only I think this was a big week. The guys did great. They had Curtis Leroy on. The next day, I had someone where there already is documentation that there is something that happened with Angel DuBose I had on yesterday and Letitia James, and she's a victim, and it was botched, and it was a big thing. So the network here, we do our best, and we're not sitting here. This isn't Fox. We don't make money, unlike someone keeps saying that's actually monetized themselves on X. We're not, okay? So we're not rich. We do this out of goodness of our hearts. And we try to present facts to the people and evidence. That's what we all based on our stuff. But it was a great week. Make sure you check out all the content. It's been an honor to be here again on a Friday, especially 4th of July, which is one of my favorite holidays. Just hope it doesn't rain out here in South Florida today. But it was great to unload on all this stuff. Great week. All the stuff we're laying out. Just keep at it with us. Keep checking back. I would definitely recommend John's X feed or myself. Keep monitoring it because you're going to see the latest with the Mayoral race because all this propaganda has got to stop. If you want to watch other people, go ahead, but they're going to lie to you. So we're not part of the misinformation campaign, and we're not sycophants. We call balls and strikes. So thank you for having me on again, and check out all the shows every day. There's another one, and I'll be back on Tuesday on the Sal Greco Show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you on Monday. See you then. All right. Special treat for you is on the way out. Check this out.
Legislation.
Oh, what the hell? Hold on. We're going to get this up.
In Congress on the drones.
I'm sorry?
Has legislation ever been proposed?
Yeah, Rebecca's got it. We work on it. Yeah, Rebecca's got it. We work on the legislation.
So yeah.
Has legislation ever been proposed?
Yeah, Rebecca's got it. We work on the legislation.
Legislation ever been proposed?
Yeah, Rebecca's got it. We work on the legislation. Rebecca's got it. We work on the legislation.
So yes.
Legislation ever been proposed?
Yeah, Rebecca's got it. We work on the legislation.
Legislation ever been proposed?
Yeah, Rebecca's got it.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?